I'm jumping the gun a little bit. So yes, Mary, we can go to the second slide, please. There we are, and very nice logos of our institutions. Our presentation topic today is using the COIL pedagogy to foster intercultural competence and global citizenship. And we're going to focus on 3 agenda items. Mary, thank you. We'll start with Professor McHugh's videos. She's currently asleep, maybe not, in Sydney, Australia, where it is 2 in the morning. Amy has recorded the first part of our presentation, introducing you to the concepts on intercultural competence and global citizenship. Next, I'll walk you through some of the specifics regarding our COIL pedagogy and collaboration. And last but not least, Professor Meineke will share some examples of student development as a result of their participation in the COIL collaboration. So without further ado, we'll start our presentation with Professor McHugh's videos. There's no sound, Mary.
I'm sorry, can you hear the sound?
No, it's
okay. Quiet. Let me fix that. Let me stop the share for a moment and reshare it. Thanks for catching that, Professor Jones. I'll reshare it. Always missing to just click a button, right?
Sí, nada más tendremos la breve presentación. Es que creo que empezó a hablar la doctora Jones antes de presentarlas. Entonces, agradecemos a Megan y Víctor por su interesante charla. Sin duda aprendimos mucho de su experiencia. Y bueno, para terminar este bloque están Mary Ann Meineck, Amy McHugh y Dr. She Jones, que ya escucharon por ahí que comenzó a introducir el tema. Y ellas nos hablarán del uso de pedagogías COIL para fomentar la competencia cultural y la ciudadanía global. Adelante con su charla. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Veronica.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction.
Here we go, back to Amy again. We'll give you a moment just to read the definition, and then we'll start her short video. Oops.
The next concept we'd like to introduce you to is intercultural competence.
Sorry, here we go.
Hello, my name is Amy McHugh. I'm a lecturer at the National Center for Cultural Competence at the University of Sydney and an adjunct faculty member at SUNY Oswego in upstate New York. I am pleased to be here today to present with my amazing colleagues Ger Jones and Mary Meineke, and my apologies for not joining you live. For the first part of our presentation, we'd like to introduce the concepts of global citizenship and intercultural competence, as we feel that our COIL pedagogy has been critical in helping students to develop these essential 21st century skills. Globalization and the rapid proliferation of technology has created a world where working together in collaboration with others is not only common, but essential. In an article written for the UNESCO International Bureau of Education, Hughes 2022 noted that, quote, themes such as migration, climate change, and trade touch everybody on the planet, either directly or through indirect ricochets of cause and effect. The UN's Sustainable Development Goals speak to a series of challenges that do not divide us, they link us. A war in one country sends refugees to another. A drop in value of one company's shares or one currency can destabilize the whole stock market, end quote. As we continue to experience economic and other global crises, it's imperative that we as educators work to facilitate a learning journey that will prepare students for the unexpected challenges of the future. So while there is no widely agreed upon definition, UNESCO understands global citizenship as referring to a sense of belonging to a global community and a common sense of humanity, with its presumed members experiencing solidarity and collective identity among themselves and collective responsibility at the global level. It is this sense of collective responsibility that we're aiming for our students to foster through the COIL collaboration. The next concept we'd like to introduce you to is intercultural competence. The model we've chosen to use is one which was created by international education scholar Darla Deerdorf. The original model, which you can see here, was developed as a result of research done by Deerdorf, published in 2006. She utilized the Delphi method, or forecasting process framework, to arrive at a group consensus. She surveyed chosen intercultural experts on what they felt were the most important aspects for one to improve their intercultural competence, and Deerdorf then summarized and gathered the information into an understandable report and model for intercultural competence. Since that time, this model has been utilized widely, and we have used it in formulating our COIL assignments and our pre- and post surveys. While there is still no agreement on how intercultural competence should be defined and/or assessed, based on Deerdorf's model, we define intercultural competence here as the ability to communicate effectively and appropriately in intercultural situations based on one's intercultural knowledge, skills, and attitudes. This breaks down further into multiple dimensions, as you can see in the model, such as self-awareness, sociolinguistic awareness, and having respect, openness, and curiosity for others. These are all aspects we considered in the design of our COIL collaboration, which my colleagues will now discuss in further detail. Thank you.
Very lovely videos. Following Amy's introductions on the theoretical underpinning and framework for our COIL project, I'll share with you some key details of our collaboration. In the fall of 2021, the University of Alberta, University of Montreal, and SUNY Oswego partnered for the 7-week online exchange project. The three of us professors worked together to plan for the 3-week collaboration, and we focused on the following activities. The first is to determine the shared learning outcomes for our students. And second is to design the student activities, student calendar, and technological tools. And the last is to define criteria for assessment of the student work. Over a 6-month period, we met and communicated via Zoom, Google Meet, WhatsApp, and emails for the purpose of our planning. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our collaboration had 3 shared learning objectives. Firstly, we wanted to engage students in thoughtful intellectual and civil discussions with their classmates and us professors from 4 countries. And secondly, to help the students to see a topic from a different point of view. And finally, to develop student intercultural competence and global citizenship. Our student participants were from Canada, Mexico, the US, and China, so very diverse backgrounds and fields of study. The 20 U Alberta students and the 30 SUNY students were in intercultural communication courses, and the 35 UDAM students were in an academic writing course. For the UDAM students and some of the U Alberta students, English was a foreign or second language. Our intercultural team projects were designed with an aim to help the students to develop and refine their intercultural competence in global citizenship, while practicing and polishing their skills in managing an online collaboration. So these are the technological aspects we utilize for our collaboration. So I won't read them out loud, it's just all here. Next slide, please, Mary. So the students were engaged in multiple activities throughout the 7 weeks. At the beginning of the student collaboration, all of them were required to attend an online kickoff meeting. To organize the 80 students into teams, we offered 9 final presentation topics, included social justice, migration, international relationships, intercultural conflict, economics, media, etc. And based on student individual choice of a presentation topic, we formed and built 14 teams and made sure that each team had equal student representation from each partner university. Each of us professors took on 4 to 5 teams and set up multiple check-in meetings with our assigned teams throughout the 7 weeks. The students connected with their teammates at least once a week to meet online. They worked together to complete 6 mini assignments leading to the final project. The mini assignments included a self-intro video, a number of team building activities such as preparing a meal and a playlist, developing core team values, signing a team contract to agree on shared roles and responsibilities. The teams presented their final projects in the form of a pre-recorded presentation in a final live meeting. Finally, the students wrote a summary report to reflect upon their COIL experiences. So in terms of the assessments, all of the individual and group activities were for credit and were graded to ensure equal participation and contribution to group work and as a demonstration of their learning outcomes as well. So in addition to the grades assigned by the professors, there was also a peer evaluation for the final assignment. So it was a very busy 7 weeks for the students and us professors, but it was a very meaningful and rewarding experience for everyone involved. And we're going to do it again coming fall this year. So that's our COIL collaboration in a nutshell. And now Professor Manki will share with you the highlights of the learning outcomes through the student examples.
Thank you, Professor Jones. You did a great job on that part. Now, let's move on and share with you a student example of how they developed their intercultural competence and their global citizenship. This is a qualitative example, and later on we have also quantitative examples. This student says, I found that there is a huge difference between culture to culture, but now more and more people start to get to know and learn from other cultures. Also, I was afraid that it would be really hard to work with people from other countries, since I'm not sure whether they would accept me or not. But now I know that it's okay that people have cultural differences, since we could always find something in common that would be enough to work or play together. And this shows their intercultural competence and their global citizenship. There's always something, whether it's food, music, a common idea, they always found something in common. Just a quick reminder, we had approximately 80 students, and now I'd like to share with you some of the quantitative data. Now, we used the Deardorff Cultural Competence Self-Assessment from 2006, and approximately 64 out of 80 students took both the pre and post test. Pre-test administered before the COIL collaboration started and post-test administered afterwards. In addition, the students also did a final reflection, a written reflection for each student, for each teacher, and I'll share some of their quotes later on. Now, what was interesting that we found that 8 out of the 15 categories with the largest increases were tolerance for ambiguity, withholding judgment, understanding each other's worldview, cultural self-awareness and understanding, social linguistic awareness, the skills to listen, observe, and interpret. Now, all of these sessions were via Zoom, so that's a really important ability to be able to listen, observe, and interpret it in the virtual world, which is even harder than in the physical, face-to-face, on-site world. Adaptability to different communication styles and behaviors, and lastly, effective communication in intercultural settings. Now, here is the chart that shows the difference in what the students thought about the increase in their cultural competencies. I'll leave the chart up here for a moment so you can take a look. Now, this was a 7-week COIL collaboration. 7 weeks is a short time, but we did see improvement, a significant improvement in those 7 weeks. Let me check the chat real quick and see if there are any questions on this. No. Okay. Moving on to the next one. In addition to the Deardorff Cultural Competence Self-Assessment, we also included this question on the post-survey. We want the students to self-reflect, self-assess on their intercultural learning outcomes. And the question we gave them was, do you feel this choral collaboration of 7 weeks gave you the chance to work towards developing your intercultural competence? And a surprising almost 80% of the students chose level 5. Level 5 is the highest, level 1 is the lowest, using the Likert scale. 5 is very high, and 4 was, I think, high or medium, something like that. Now, here are some more reflections that came from the surveys where the students were allowed to just openly write what they thought, what they liked, what they felt they grew the most in, because we wanted to include, as we stated before, both qualitative and quantitative data. Now, I'm not going to read these quotes. What we did was we put numbers 1, 2, and 3. I'll give you a few minutes to read the quotes, and then please open your chat box and type the number of the quote or the quotes in the chat box that you like the most. I'll repeat it again. Read them and then type the number in the chat box of the quote or quotes that you like the most. Thank you, Ruby, for choosing number 3, Olga number 2, Veronica number 3, JC number 3. It looks to be a tie. It looks like number 3 seems to be the most popular so far. I'll give you 30 more seconds to type your number into the chat of the quote you like the most. 30 seconds left. Okay, thank you all. Thank you all. It seems to be that number 3 was the most popular. Now I have 2 more quotes to go and you can vote again. I'll give you a moment, read these and type the number in the box of the quote or quotes that you like the most. Thank you, Marisol. Thank you, Juan Manuel. Thank you, Sol, Olga, Hector, Brenda, Melissa. Twenty more seconds left to vote. 20 seconds left. This one appears to be a tie between 4 and 5. What it is, all 5 quotes are wonderful quotes to show us what the students feel in their own words about the COIL collaboration. Now, here's one final thought through a student's voice. Here's what the student said. I learned a lot about cultures, about how different cultures can be, and interesting point, and about how what we see on the internet is not always the truth. That part I loved. How what we see on the internet is not always the truth. Listening to the experience of the people who live in different countries was very interesting and fun. From this activity, I won a lot of confidence to be able to talk to people from other countries and know about them was a very fun and beautiful experience. Now, I think these quotes and also our Deardorff self-assessment show that the students develop their intercultural competence, the ability to communicate effectively and appropriately, and they also develop their global citizenship. That is that sense of belonging to a global community and a sense of humanity, according to UNESCO. And I guess that wraps us up with questions. I know you cannot open your microphones, but if you'd like to type in the chat any questions you might have, we would love to answer them.
Bueno, en este momento comenzamos con la sesión de preguntas y respuestas. Les agradecería hacer uso del chat habilitado en esta sesión de Zoom para realizar sus preguntas y también comentar que ya se habilitó el micrófono para la doctora Laura. Ella en la sesión anterior quería expresar algo y ya he solicitado, bueno, que se le abra su micrófono. Me han corroborado que ya puede abrir su micrófono y puede compartir sus opiniones.
Here is our first question from Brenda Garcia. I'll read it in Spanish and English, and here it goes, Spanish. ¿Cuáles fueron algunos incidentes críticos de hacer una colaboración trilateral? Professor Jones, what were our critical points in making this trilateral collaboration happen? Would you like to answer on that? Any critical moments we had, or would you like me to answer on that?
Mary, why would you like to start? Would you like to start first?
Okay. Well, I guess critical moments. Well, first of all, I had met Professor McHugh about 2 years ago, and we had done a collaboration. We were able to develop a really great communication and be really open and respectful of other ideas. And then Professor McHugh from Australia met Professor Jones, and they started talking and getting along. And then they invited me. So I think it was just time and the support of our universities. And I think everyone just being open and respectful to each other's ideas and trying to find a common ground, not trying to press our program or be the commander. No, we really listened to each other and said, hey, how can we do this? We really want to make it work. Let's be open and listen to each other. Professor Jones, do you like what I said? Would you like to add anything?
I love what you said. I'm just going to add in a little bit of my own experience and my decisions for, this is my first COIL experience, and it has been really fabulous and spectacular. I'm a professional in education abroad field. So my job is to send university students, our university students, to various locations and programming around the world for international learning opportunities, international learning and experiential opportunities. Then pandemic happened 2 years ago, and where education abroad was nearly brought to a halt. And at our university, intercultural competence, global citizenship are two very important concepts and mandates for our international field. So yeah, and that's where we need to find different ways, either alternative or any way that we can still provide students equally meaningful and accessible opportunities for international learning. And that's where COIL was brought to my attention, and I met Professor McHugh some years ago, collaborating on internationalizing higher education at home and abroad. So the piece at home is very well accomplished through COIL. So there are students who cannot afford to go abroad for various reasons, and now through technological aids, they could participate in very meaningful and civil discussions, interactions with students across the Canadian border. So yeah, that's the critical point for me. And I am very, how would I say, I felt very fortunate to have worked with two very seasoned COIL professionals and experts for my first experience. Very much appreciated the opportunity. Any other questions? Let's see what's in the chat.
I'm sorry, Megan and Victor, we jumped ahead and didn't allow you question times. I guess we were nervous and we just clicked. If anybody else has questions for the previous one for Megan and Victor, go ahead.
Mary, are there new questions in the chat
No,
box?
not yet. Not yet.
All right.
I will, with this remaining moment, follow up on Laura's question on the chat. I was thinking a bit further on that question about how can I encourage my instructors to consider cross-disciplinary collaborations when they're wanting initially to just stick within their field and their comfort level. And one practice that that I have been doing with COIL instructors is before we secure a match, doing a sort of brainstorming session about their course and what would be some potential partnerships, disciplinary partnerships that would bring something added and neat to their material. So for example, if teaching a course in, we have one on recycling culture, and during that discussion, said, maybe if I partnered with someone with a different geographic regional focus, we could consider recycling in that context. And so we ended up matching with someone in a German studies department. But that sort of exercise on brainstorming what could be good matches, disciplinary wise, and then when we reach out to universities like UDEM, we can say, okay, we're looking for someone maybe from one of these fields, with multiple options. And that's been, I think, a really helpful way of encouraging instructors to think more broadly and to also find matches that align at least with some level of comfort. It's not too out there, I guess, in that way. We're not putting together our, physics and I don't even know what would go with physics. I guess nothing goes with physics but physics. To my point, trying to stay in some level of familiarity. So that's back at you, Laura, if you're still there.
Brenda García de la UDEM nos pregunta lo mismo para Megan y Víctor, incidentes críticos en su proyecto COIL. Solemos hablar de los beneficios, ¿cuáles son los retos?
Do you want me to translate? Okay, Megan and Victor, critical moments in your COIL project. We've only talked about the benefits. What were the challenges?
Victor's not here, but I will speak on our experience working together. And I think anyone who's done COIL can quickly say that there are challenges around academic schedules and language. So for sure we encountered those. But something in particular for us, being an institution in the University of Arizona, we do our planning so far in advance at times compared to our partner who's a bit more nimble and able to be a bit more flexible and nimble, that this was a challenge for us, that we really needed the commitment, almost 2 semesters in advance in order to secure the room, have it in the course catalog, have students enroll a time before, to have our syllabi approved. We have so many policies in place that require a lot more time and less flexibility, where our partners were just able to, they sort of had to meet us where we were at in that. And so that was a critical point that helps us think about, as we find partners that we can align with well, who have the flexibility, but also the foresight that it's hard for us to just plan a COIL at the last minute. Sometimes you get an outreach like, hey, let's do COIL next semester. And it's, 4 weeks before the semester. That was hard for us on our end. And I also think finding, as I pointed out, that linchpin, that similarity between the 2 courses that they can build off of and make something meaningful. So the courses might be very different, but if they can find that shared space that they can both build off of, that's sort of a critical juncture. And for us, that was the main challenge. But then once we found it, that was what we were able to build off. So I would highlight those. And the normal technology, all of those things that everyone else who does COIL, I'm sure, has had to navigate carefully.
Just want to add a bit more to what Megan has elaborated. It's for student collaboration, we do find the time zones, because our groups were from 4 locations around the world, and just getting the students together for synchronous activities, that was a challenge reported by the students. And even for us, one of our partners is in Australia right now, which is way past midnight. So even for us to have a synchronous meeting, sometimes it can be, because of the time differences, can be a little challenging.
Muy bien, y en el chat también tenemos otra pregunta. Tenemos 2 minutos para José Luis. Es una pregunta que una servidora le hace al doctor José Luis. ¿Podría compartir más sobre estrategias para sensibilizar a las autoridades universitarias sobre la importancia de la implementación de COIL como una estrategia de internacionalización del currículo en casa?
Sí, rápidamente, la evidencia. Por eso yo hablé, se hizo un proyecto base, se colectó la evidencia de los alumnos y es el liderazgo de los alumnos a través de esa evidencia registrada en video que convenció a las autoridades. Pero ustedes van a tener oportunidad mañana de escuchar más detenidamente el trabajo de los estudiantes, el liderazgo de los estudiantes, porque ya creo que se acabó el tiempo, pero la evidencia es fundamental para convencer las autoridades.
Muchas gracias. A nombre de la red LATAM COIL, agradecemos a todos los conferencistas que participaron el día de hoy por su aportación a este segundo Congreso Virtual LATAM COIL 2022. Como reconocimiento a su participación, hacemos entrega del presente diploma virtual a los conferencistas por su participación en este evento. A continuación, les agradeceríamos emitan su opinión llenando la evaluación electrónica de este evento, la cual será tomada en cuenta para mejorar la organización del mismo. Esperamos que este día siga siendo provechoso para todos y todas. Los invitamos a seguir participando en el resto del Congreso. Y les recuerdo que a las 14 horas tendremos nuestro siguiente panel, será el siguiente panel de expertos sobre redes COIL en América Latina. Entonces los esperamos a las 14 horas. Recuerden que van a ingresar desde la plataforma Sketch. Ahí tienen el enlace para conectarse a las 14 horas. Muchas gracias.